He didn't come into my life like a storm, more like a breeze, quiet, subtle, almost unnoticeable. I didn't even realize when he found a way in, not into my heart. That would have been too loud, into my head, into that tiny space between I'm used to being alone and what if this means something? Means we met at a friend's dinner party. He wasn't flashy, he didn't flirt, didn't crack jokes about his exes. He just sat next to me and asked if I liked silence. So poetic, right? I nodded, and somehow from that nod, everything started. He didn't chase me. He just never left. He was the nice guy, the one who didn't yell, didn't cheat, didn't drag you to the altar by the hair. And I guess that should have felt good. But even in those first few weeks, I could feel it. He wasn't building anything, he was hiding. He wasn't moving forward, just getting comfortable, staying still. I remember thinking, he's always just off to the side, like I'm in the frame and he's somewhere out of focus in the background. He could say sweet things, but the moment I asked, what about us? He'd suddenly go hard of hearing. Funny how fast men lose their hearing when the word commitment shows up. He didn't hurt me. He just didn't do anything. And that silence was louder than any argument. You sit there, waiting for him to suggest something, moving in, getting a dog, a trip for two. But all he ever said was, we'll see. We'll see this. We'll see that. No decisions, no direction. I started feeling like a free trial. He was using it, but never ready to subscribe. Sometimes I thought, he's not even a person. He's a cloud. There, but untouchable. If the wind blows, he drifts. If not, he just hovers. He'd say, you're so real. And I'd think, and you're so temporary. I tried not to push, because of course we're taught not to pressure, not to scare him off. Don't be too much. But why is it always our job not to scare them? I didn't beg him to stay, but I left an extra toothbrush in the cabinet. He never said, I love you, but he'd show up every Friday with wine. One night, he fell asleep next to me, and I watched him breathe. And I thought, you're here now, but you're already planning to leave. You just don't know when yet. That's how it started. Not with some dramatic, I'm in love, but with a quiet, what if this turns into something? Like I was walking on a ledge, hoping he'd reach out his hand, but all he ever did was stand nearby and watch me try to balance. That's how he showed up. Not like a storm, like a breeze. The kind that leaves your heart just a little sick for a very long time. He was always almost close, almost mine. That was the most accurate word for him, almost. He'd show up, but never call first. He'd hug me, but never hold on tight. He'd say, I feel good with you, but like he was whispering it into the void. God forbid it sounded too much like intent. And me, I understood, and stayed anyway. At first I told myself, he's just careful. Maybe he's been hurt. Maybe he just takes his time. Not every man screams, I love you, and runs to the jewelry store, right? That's what I kept repeating, over and over. But one day I realized he's not afraid of rushing. He's afraid of direction. He doesn't even have one. He's like that guy in the store who fills up a shopping cart, wanders for hours, then dumps everything back on the shelf and walks out. He was just trying on a relationship with me, with life, with himself. Sometimes he'd say, I just don't want to lose my freedom. And I'd think, and I'm losing years. This wasn't love. It was more like, I guess this will do. He was scared to call us a couple, and I was scared to be alone again. We dated for a year, then another, then another. My friends had gotten married, had babies, gotten divorced, fallen in love again. And I was still explaining his behavior as deep emotional complexity. I became an expert in self-deception. He came to my birthday. He must care. He cooked pasta. That means something. He stayed over 3 nights in a row. Maybe we're basically living together. He'd leave in the morning and say, things are moving kind of fast. I don't like when things move too fast. And I'd nod, while screaming inside, are you ever going to decide anything? When a woman loves, she creates space. When a man is afraid, he builds walls. He had walls. I had a staircase that led to nowhere. If someone told our story as a joke, it would be this: expectation met indecision. They moved in together, hung a sign on the door that said, "We'll see how it goes." It all felt temporary, except temporary lasted forever. Sometimes I wondered, am I being too much? Should I be more chill, more low maintenance? But then I'd remember I wasn't asking for anything wild. I was just asking him to be here. Being here doesn't mean lounging on my couch every weekend. Being here means wanting to stay when the sun comes up. He was always almost, and I was way too real for his not just yet. So that's how I lived, with a man who always had one foot out the door and the other planted deep in my heart. And every time I told myself, just give him a little more time, I gave up another piece of myself, because with every just a little more, I lost a little too much. 3 years, three. I'd changed jobs, lived through COVID, moved to a new apartment, and he still not ready. One day, I heard him on the phone with a friend. He said, "No, it's all good. She's great. I just don't like being pressured." And I stood in the kitchen holding a cup of tea. The tea was going cold, and I was boiling over. Pressured? Where exactly? In all my silences? In all those years I didn't ask, "What are we?" In all the times I didn't shake him by the collar when he forgot our anniversary? I was just there, just believing, carrying the two of us on my back. And suddenly it hit me. I was living inside hope like it was a delayed flight. Bags packed, boarding pass in hand, and the screen just kept flashing, "Delayed." He'd say, "I don't want to promise anything I'm not sure I can follow through on." And I'd think, but I already promised myself you were the one. He never overpromised. And that was the trap. You can't accuse him, but you still feel abandoned. I put everything on hold for him. Trips? Now's not the time. My career? Had to fit his schedule. A baby? He's not ready. A real family? Too soon. Leaving? What if I regret it? Sometimes I thought, maybe he will change. Maybe one day he'll wake up, look at me and say, "You're it. Let's really do this." And then I'd wake up and realize that wasn't a dream. That was Pandora's box, and all that was left inside, it was silence. We became like roommates. He left, I stayed. And at some point, I realized I wasn't even waiting anymore. I was just paused. Then one day, I said it out loud. This isn't life. This is waiting for a miracle from someone who doesn't even know I'm waiting. And you know what hurts most? I don't blame him. I blame myself. For every year I gave away, hoping he'd get there. For every night by the window, thinking, just a little longer. For every compromise I dressed up as love. He wasn't a bad person. He just wasn't mine. He just never grew up. He just didn't want to. And I thought I'd be the one to inspire him to become better. Turns out I was the one who made it easy for him to stay the same. One time a friend asked me, "You're so smart. Why are you holding on to him?" And I said, "Because I decided this was love, and I can't stand admitting I was wrong." Also, starting over again is terrifying. That's the truth. Sometimes we don't hold on to people. We hold on to the version of ourselves that once believed in them. We'd been together long enough for me to know how he takes his coffee, but there was no ring, no key, no, "This is your home too." One time I stayed over for a week. I had the flu, fever, chills. He was the one who offered, even insisted. I sat on his couch with a blanket and tea, and he walked around the apartment on the phone making plans. Without me. Like I wasn't in his apartment, I was just visiting his life. He brought soup. He was kind, but still. I felt like a tenant without a lease. No security, no foundation. When you're in love, you don't always notice it right away, that you're in someone else's world, where you're more like a guest substitute, an add-on, not the main story. I'd watch him laugh with his friends, open, relaxed, loud, and with me. He was polite, restrained, a little distant. A man can live with you for 5 years and never notice you changed your hair color, but he will absolutely notice if there's no beer in the fridge. What does that tell you? Priorities. And you're not the first one on the list. I kept thinking, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Not all men are super emotionally present, right? But then I'd remember who I used to be in other relationships. I used to love with my whole being, to the bone. And him, he was just there. And I was panicking more and more because I knew if I walked out tomorrow, nothing would change. He'd just say, "Well, that happens." That terrified me. Like I was the backup plan in the heart of the man I shared a bed with. Responsibility isn't a ring, it's not even let's move in together. It's knowing that if something happens, he won't run. He'll say, "I'm here," and not just say it, mean it, prove it. But we women, we're taught to be modest, to not ask, to not demand, to not be too much. Sit quietly. Be grateful someone's there at all. At some point, you realize you've been tiptoeing for years, and then the real questions hit you. Who said responsibility is only his job? Why am I the only one carrying this? Maybe it's time I admit I'm tired of holding us up alone. Sometimes I'd dream that I was standing in his doorway with a suitcase. He'd look at me, not angry, not sad, just confused. Like I'd handed him a bill for staying too long, and he didn't know if he was supposed to pay. That's how he saw the whole thing. Relationships are just something that happens. No need to choose, no need to commit, no need to stay. But I wanted to be chosen, not out of obligation, out of desire. That was the whole conflict. For him, choosing meant losing freedom. For me, choosing meant being seen. He lived by go with the flow. I lived by if you love me, stay. Because when you're carrying it all by yourself, it's not a relationship. It's a gym workout. I said it to his face. No yelling, no tears, no drama, just quiet. Evening. In the kitchen. We were drinking tea, and suddenly I just knew I couldn't do this anymore. He started his usual speech. "I'm just not ready. It's not you, it's me. I need time. I'm scared I'll mess things up." And I cut him off. I said, "You're not afraid of responsibility. You're afraid of living for someone other than yourself." He froze, like I'd just taken away his favorite excuse. He looked at me, not angry, just surprised, like I'd spoken out loud something even he hadn't dared to admit. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel sorry. Not for him, not for us. Because I finally felt like I was telling the truth. My truth, uncomfortable, unpolished, but honest. I said, "You know what? You're not the only one. Men always confuse love with a trap. Like choosing someone means giving something up. Like staying means surrender. But we don't want you to surrender. We just want you to stay." He listened, didn't interrupt, which honestly was new. Usually he'd walk away or argue. But this time, he just sat there. And it all poured out of me. I'm tired of waiting. Tired of living on pause. Tired of standing in the shadow of your not ready yet. He wanted to argue, but he didn't. Because he knew I was right. You know what's the most heartbreaking? You can spend years trying to prove you're safe, that you're not a threat, not a trap, not someone who's going to cage him, but he still keeps his hand hovering over the cancel button. Men will argue for hours about their favorite baseball team, but ask them, "Do you love me?" And suddenly they forget how to speak. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the very first time, and honestly, so was I. For the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a man who was afraid, not because he was weak, but because he'd spent his whole life being the one to leave first. I told him, "I won't hold you. If you want to go, go. If you want to stay, stay. But on your own, not because I'm the one holding on." He sat there, silent, then got up, walked to the hallway, grabbed his jacket. "I need to think," he said. I nodded. And I don't. And just like that, he left. Quietly. No slamming doors. No, let's try again. I closed the door behind him and didn't cry. Because now I knew. Sometimes leaving isn't losing. It's being free. And the truth is, I had been holding on. For years. Softly. Patiently. Like my love was a dress rehearsal for some grand love he'd one day finally step into, but he never did. He just stood still. And one day I realized I wasn't holding on to him. I was holding myself hostage in a place where no one held me back. Like I'd been sitting in a waiting room for a flight that was never called. He never showed up. So I left. Myself. I didn't expect him to come back. And still, he texted. First, I'm sorry. Then, I miss you. And then, I finally understand. I read the messages and felt nothing, not even anger, silence, and strangely, gratitude. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't inside the waiting. I was outside of it. He asked to meet. I didn't answer because I knew he hadn't changed. He was just scared. It wasn't clarity, it was panic, and I didn't want to be what he runs to out of fear. I wanted to be what someone chooses with clear eyes. Men grow up slowly. First, you're the one he can spend the night with. Then, the one he circles back to after every mess. And finally, the one he lost for good. I went out, drank wine with friends, planned a trip. I lived. At first, it felt strange, like I'd forgotten how to think about myself. I kept catching myself wondering, what would he think? Would he like this? And then, suddenly, freedom. I was no longer the background character in someone else's story. I was the main one, the center, and everything got brighter. The flowers smelled stronger. The coffee tasted better. Music wasn't background, it was air. He kept texting, then he called. I've changed. I see what I lost. I'm ready. And I said, I'm not. I wasn't mad. I just didn't want to go back. Not even to him, but to me, the version of me who used to wait, who whispered inside, please, just choose me. I don't want to be someone's option anymore. I'm a person, not a checkbox. It's funny, isn't it? The moment you finally choose yourself, they all come back. But you're not the same. Not bitter, not cold, just free. He said, you've changed. And I smiled. No, I just stopped being afraid to be alone. Responsibility isn't about control. It's not, do what I say. It's, I see you, I'm here, I chose you, and I'm staying, even when it gets hard. He didn't choose that. And now I choose me. I remember how I used to cling to every little, let's give it another shot. How I'd cancel my own plans just to see him. How I'd postpone important talks so I wouldn't scare him off. How I twisted my schedule like my life was some kind of flexible clay. And now, silence. Not from him, inside. No more guessing what he'd think. No more writing fairy tales where he finally becomes ready. I realized responsibility isn't carrying someone else, it's carrying yourself, your truth, your worth, your right to be loved, not tolerated. A friend said, you're glowing. I smiled. Maybe it's because no one's dimming the light anymore. And that's when I finally understood he wasn't the villain. He was the lesson, the one that taught me how to stand up and walk away. Even if I love someone, especially if I love someone. You know, we're taught from childhood to be good girls, understanding, soft, patient, a woman supposed to wait, forgive, inspire, support, and if it all falls apart, don't complain. Just say, it didn't work out, but I'm done being good. I want to be real. Because being good usually just means don't cause trouble, and being real means you get to exist with all your wants, your fears, your feelings. Men are allowed to be weak, to snap, to go silent, to walk away when it's too much. But when a woman gets tired, she's a drama queen. Well, I'm not a drama queen. I'm a woman who got tired of doing it all alone. He used to say, I never asked you to. And I'd answer, only to myself, you didn't have to. I took it on myself. But now, I'm putting it down. Because a relationship isn't a backpack one person hauls while the other takes breaks. Responsibility should go both ways, not automatically fall on the one who's more patient. Do you know how we lose years of our lives? Not because someone cheated, but because we give too many chances. Every what if he figures it out is 1 month you'll never get back. Every I don't want to push him is one more piece of self respect you gave away. Every, well, at least he doesn't cheat is one dream quietly dying. A woman can build a career, raise kids, buy a home, and still manage to get her lashes done. And a man? He's still thinking about it 3 years later. One day, you just wake up and realize you're not angry. You're clear. You've stopped waiting to be chosen because you finally chose yourself. You're not bitter because you finally understand no one owes you anything, but you don't have to keep enduring either. Maybe he will come back with flowers, with apologies, with, I finally get it. But you're not the same because you're not a pit stop. You're the road. You're the life that no one gets to put on hold anymore. Funny, right? You spend your best years trying to prove to him that you matter, and then one day you realize you didn't even matter to yourself all that time. And that moment, that's the hardest one, but it's also the most honest, and that's where it all begins. I'm saying this to you, to the one lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a text, telling herself he's just tired or going through something. The one who thinks if she just hangs in there, it'll all work out. It won't. If you're the only one carrying the relationship, it's not a relationship. It's dependency. If he's afraid of commitment, it's not a personality trait. It's a choice. And if he doesn't choose you, you have to choose yourself. Because you're not someone who gets forgotten to call back. You're not someone whose patience should be stretched to the edge. You're not a pause. You're life. You're not a backpack. You're not for now. You don't have to fight for love. If it's real, you won't have to beg for it. It will come to both of you.